Even if you're not completely familiar with the infamously screwed up series School Days, you're probably old enough, I'd have to hope, to remember one of the earliest internet memes, Nice Boat. The Nice Boat meme sailed across the internet in the days following the initial release of the famously graphic episode of the School Days anime in Japan. And by a sheer and rather unfortunate coincidence, the very day before this episode was scheduled to air, a 16-year-old girl living in Kyoto killed her father with an axe. And wouldn't you know it, it just so happened to mirror a scene in the final episode of School Days. In order to avoid controversy in relation to the murder, the TV Kanagawa network replaced the final episode with a 25-minute clip of peaceful scenery set to the soothing music of Box air on a G-string. Suffice to say, viewers were not amused, and one user took to 4chan commenting "nice boat," referencing the ferry scene in the footage. With that explanation out of the way, it should be no surprise that the School Days franchise has made it onto our Shocktober list. Originally released as a sexually explicit visual novel back in April 2005 by the company Overflow, School Days would go on to become an established franchise that would span countless games, manga, and a very notorious anime. School Days, with its beautiful artwork, appealing characters, and multiple endings, would appear at first glance to be your standard harem anime. You've got your 16-year-old male protagonist, Makoto Ito, and a collective of potential romantic interests to choose from. Most forms of School Days media focuses primarily on Makoto's relationship with one of two girls, the bubbly best friend Sekai Saionji, and the shy and bookish Kotonoha Katsura. These girls are as beautiful as they are tragic, and probably would have gone on to lead happier and significantly longer lives had they not crossed paths with Makoto, who is on many fans' lists as one of the worst protagonists in anime history. And while it's the lovely fan favorite Katsura Makoto is initially interested in, the two are paired up by mutual best friend Sekai, who is later revealed to have feelings for Makoto, because of course she does. This causes obvious tension between Katsura and Makoto, but more so when Makoto decides to become romantically and sexually involved with Sekai. School Days is very unique in that out of its whopping 21 possible endings, there are way more bad endings than good endings. And part of School Days' lasting notoriety is that every single one of the bad endings tends to be a gory and bloody reminder of why you probably just shouldn't cheat. And there's just so many of them, including, but not limited to, Katsura killing herself in front of Makoto and Sekai by jumping off a building, Sekai pushing Katsura off in front of an oncoming train, Katsura pushing Sekai off in front of an oncoming train, both girls winding up on the tracks and subsequently being hit and killed, Makoto getting hit by the train, hooray, Makoto getting both Katsura and Sekai pregnant but abandoning Sekai, which leads to Sekai killing Makoto, Katsura cutting Sekai's throat with a hacksaw, Katsura literally cutting open Sekai's stomach to see if she's telling the truth about being pregnant. By the way, have I mentioned these are high school aged children? And if you're wondering, well, where the hell are the parents? Well, I tell you, they're probably off having twice as much unprotected sex as their kids, given that almost every single character in this franchise is related in some way to one another. This includes, but is certainly not limited to, Makoto and Sekai, who are listed as double paternal uncle and half-niece, with all of Makoto's prospect dating choices being blood-related to him. The only exception to this rule is Katsura, which of course leads to only more questions than answers when you take into account that in one of the harem endings, resulting in both Katsura and Sekai being impregnated by Makoto at the same time, all three choose to instead forgo all that murdery business and create a peaceful, polygamous, and underage family of minors instead. And just in case I forgot to drive home this point earlier, these are all high school-aged children. And if you think School Days is bad enough, let me tell you about another one of the franchise's famous spin-offs, Cross Days, which is a dumpster fire in of itself and solidifies Makoto's place as one of the most hated anime characters in the history of anime. Cross Days includes the addition of a new male protagonist, the cross-dressing Yuki, who, depending on the ending you get, can either wind up the sex slave of a group of vicious boys or end up the sex slave of a group of vicious girls. I have never seen such a mess. I could literally be here all day talking about School Days and its impressive resume of emotionally flawed and homicidal characters, but for now, I'll leave you with this summary of School Days. If you're planning on watching the School Days anime for Halloween, and I recommend that you do, make sure you're not doing it in the presence of your partner if you've ever cheated on them. You wouldn't want them getting any ideas now, would you?